This video is brought to you by PrizePicks. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the time of the week where I go through hot takes that you guys have commented under my videos during the week. Let's jump into it. A ton of hot takes to get. Jason with the first one, who says this: funny thing, Watson has never had the reputation of being the brightest bulb in the room. Watson has never once struck me as a dummy, but he's never made me think he's the master offensive operator. I think I'm going to offer some pushback here because I don't think this is an accurate description of what people thought of Deshaun Watson back then. I don't know if people thought he was like a master offensive operator in the way that like Tom Brady was. Obviously, that's not the case. But he was well regarded for his mental acumen. He used to break down plays in post-game press conferences. He was seen as one of the better post-snap processors in the NFL, and his ability to kind of break down defenses was highly regarded. There's like a video back from those times of him breaking down film, I think, with Brian Baldinger, of all people. Go check that out, right? I think what's happened the last few years has kind of made people's perception of Deshaun Watson be one thing, but back in like 2019, 2018, when he was in college, he was well regarded for his ability to his football IQ. He was seen as somebody who had very strong football IQ. It was the argument for people back then, like, this sounds crazy, but back then people used to make the argument that he was better than Mahomes because of his football IQ. So I would say he wasn't like, oh, he's going to manipulate the defense from the pocket and be some kind of like master like Tom Brady was. But people had high respect for his football IQ, and I think this comment doesn't put enough respect on that. Watson was well regarded from his ability to break down plays, his ability to understand plays. That's one of the things that the Browns really thought they were getting out of Watson. And I think if you respect that trait from Watson, it's why he's been so rough since he's come back, because that was a huge part of what made Deshaun Watson was his understanding of the game and his football IQ. But I think him missing 2 seasons and the league evolving rapidly in those 2 seasons threw off his football IQ, and it never really got back to where it was. Like he understands the game that was happening in 2019 and 2020 really well, but that game for defenses changed rapidly from 2020 to 2022 and 23, and he never really quite caught up to that because he just wasn't there for that evolution. I think that's part of the reason why he struggled so much, is because a lot of his game was reliant on really being confident in his post-snap processing and that being accurate. So I would disagree with this. You know what I mean? I don't think he was seen as like an average football IQ person back then. He was seen as somebody who had high football IQ. Because it wasn't like he was like, he's a good athlete, but he wasn't like testing like Cam Newton or anything like that. He was a good thrower of the football, but he was never naturally like as gifted as some other guys like Pat Mahomes. What put Watson over the top was clutch ability perceived at that time, and his football IQ was a big part of that. All right, Tyrone, remember he threw that 1 touchdown blind? Like people were really hyping up his like ability to read defenses back then. I think we've kind of forgot that because it's been easy to forget, but that was a big part of Watson. Tyrone Sullivan says not only is Andrew Berry not only not on a hot seat or a wet seat, he's firmly strapped to the driver's seat with full support from the Haslam Group. This also confirms that the Haslam Group forced the Watson trade, otherwise he should have been fired. It appears he has a plan barring something horrible, something executing a full backing of the execution of this plan. Yeah, I would agree with most of this. I don't know if this is confirmation that like the Haslam Group forced the Watson trade through. I think that the Haslam Group understands that Andrew Berry's not fully responsible for what happened with Watson, right? Whether that be because they all kind of collectively understand just how much of a flop Watson has been and how unpredictable that felt and feels still to this day. Like, he was such a unprecedented flop that it feels harsh to blame that on any one individual when everybody was thinking the same thing. Or if it's because the Haslam Group forced it through, right? It's probably a mix of those two reasonings, right? I don't think the Haslam Group pointed a gun at Andrew Berry and told him to put through the Watson trade, but I do think the Haslam Group really wanted it to happen. And I think Andrew Berry had his reservations, but went with it. And I think they all kind of understand what happened with Watson is just unprecedented. It's hard to blame an individual for that because it's not like anybody saw this coming. Like, everybody was thinking of ways this could go bad in Cleveland. And the worst people said before, obviously, what happened with Watson happened was that he could be just like a game manager, good quarterback, right? Like, the thought that he would become unplayable was not really on a lot of people's minds. So I think that factors into it too. But yeah, I do think Andrew Berry he's fully in charge of the Cleveland Browns right now, right? Like, anything the Browns do, it's because Andrew Berry wanted to do it, right? We've made this point with the Miles trade, right? Andrew Berry wasn't forced to trade Miles. He wanted to do it, right? He's made that very clear. So, all for better or worse, everything that the Browns are doing post 2025, Andrew Berry has no out when it comes to taking responsibility for it, whether it's something good or something bad. And we'll see how some of these moves work out. Right now, the draft picks look great. And that's going to be the loudest thing on his early resume. But, how is the Travis Hunter trade going to age? How is trading back the 9 for Spencer Fano going to age? How is the Myles Garrett trade going to age? That's also going to weigh heavily on him, as it's undeniable that he is in the driver's seat of the franchise right now. Next comment comes from Scott, who says, Monken does not need to be the head coach who gets the Browns to the promised land in order to be the correct hire in 2026. It's possible that he does get the Browns to the promised land, but it's possible that Monken is Barry's version of Lincoln hiring McKellen. ILW, Monken could be the guy who trains and prepares Barry's army to fight like it does for Grant. That's a Civil War reference from Scott. I collect such a random collection of nerds who like the Browns sometimes. I get any kind of reference here, from like Middle Earth to medieval or the like fantasy setting stuff to sci-fi, and we got a Civil War comp here. Shout out to the nerds, man. Shout out to the nerds. And I say that as a nerd himself. You know what I mean? If the latter, Monken, is a successful hire, we can and should root for Monken from now, though. Yeah, I think it's possible. The basketball comp for this is the Mark Jackson to Steve Kerr. I think Monken can serve a purpose as somebody who is good for the Browns right now because they have a young, developing roster. Maybe once it's time to put the foot on the gas, we'll see if Monken is the right guy to lead us there. But if there's a change that needs to happen there, it might happen. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that Monken was not a successful hire. It's the same way how I view in a microcosm what happened with Monken in Baltimore, right? For many years, Greg Roman was the perfect offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, right? Like, I don't think anybody was getting more out of Lamar Jackson early than Greg Roman as an offensive coordinator. There came a point where Baltimore, and more specifically Lamar Jackson, simply outgrew the training wheels that Greg Roman's offense puts the passing game on, and was ready for more. And when he was ready for more, Todd Monken was the perfect guy to hire to replace Greg Roman, to take Lamar's game to the next level. I think that's a possibility that Todd might be really good for these guys young, but maybe there's a point where we need to hit the gas and we would need to switch. Doesn't make hiring Todd Monken a waste of time. I don't really even view Kevin Stefanski, that hire, as a waste of time, because there was, I think, a lot of things that we've learned from that era, and I think we had a decent amount of success relative to what the Browns have had over the last 20 years with that era. So, yeah, just because a coach isn't going to be the forever coach of the Cleveland Browns does not mean that they don't serve a purpose in the Browns' quest to get better. I agree with that take 100%. And I appreciate you throwing in a Civil War reference in there. That was crazy. Shout out to Scott. You know what I mean? But we're going to continue on with these hot takes. But first, I got to thank my sponsor, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 sports pick app. The app is really easy to use. For player picks, just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. That's it. Rather just pick teams, PrizePicks has that now too. Just pick the winner, spread, or total in any game or fight. PrizePicks is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. Plus, you can even follow me on the app at Quen_C. Tell my picks, one click, and follow your friends too. Best of all, play your first $5 and get $150 in lineups if you win. Just use the promo code HMA when you sign up. That's right. PrizePicks just switched up their offer, so there's no better time to join. Lock in and win with that first lineup. That's code HMA at sign up to get $150 in bonus lineups if you win with your first $5 or up lineup. All right, World War Z with a hot take says it'd be funny if Gabriel wins the job based on getting plays called quickly and eliminating procedural penalties. If you can't get plays off in time, it doesn't matter how strong your arm may be, the Browns will be emphasizing the run game, so procedural run penalties are drive killers. Arm strength isn't as critical. Time for a game manager. All right, so here's the thing with Dillon Gabriel, right? We can say arm strength doesn't matter and that drive killers are more important. But what also kills drives is sacks. And because Dillon Gabriel was not able to stretch the ball downfield, what ended up happening is that teams just would relentlessly blitz Dillon Gabriel because they weren't afraid of anything downfield. So Dillon would get sacked a lot. And then that would put the Browns behind the sticks and effectively have the same issue. Dillon's got to be able to make the defense play him honestly. If he can't get that to happen, nothing he does matters, right? So, yeah, it's nice that he's probably really good with the procedural stuff. He's probably really good with the playbook, right? He might get the ball out pretty quick. But if you can't force defenses to play you honestly, then there's always going to be an issue there. So that's the big thing for Dillon. He can't be a game manager unless he forces them to play him honestly, right? Like there's not any successful game managers where throwing the ball downfield was not something that they could do, right? People talk about game managers all the time. They describe them, but game managers, they can complete a deep shot if it's there. Dillon could not. So that's what he has to address to get to the conversation of game manager. Martha says this. I noticed the defense was playing Dillon at the line of scrimmage. They were blitzing him, and they left the receiver wide open. Seems like the Browns are trying to get him to throw downfield more. I think the Browns are trying to figure out exactly what I was talking about in the last question, right? Which is we know what Dillon can do well. We know how there's a obvious answer to beat Dillon Gabriel, right? So let's throw that answer at Dillon Gabriel and see what he can do. And to his credit, on that rep that you're referencing, he threw a nice deep ball. It was a touchdown to Luke Floria. So more of that from Dillon Gabriel, it might get him on the field. But I think that's what the Browns want to see is like, hey, what can you do when we do speed you up? What can you do when we force you to make a quick but downfield decision? That's going to be of the utmost importance for Dillon Gabriel this offseason, this preseason. But that's it for hot takes. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Y'all continue to have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.